Okay, so hello everybody and welcome to this first episode of CRA Mondays. The purpose of CRA Mondays is to provide room for the ORC community to discuss topics that are adjacent, related to the CRA, that we want to learn more about, and that are not necessarily directly connected with the work that we do, but that might inspire it, inform it, or essentially help our work get better. So that's really the background for these CRA Monday talks, conversations. We'll have them after every SIG call going forward. And today we're very happy to have as our first guest who was willing to step up last minute and deal with this all being sort of like organized in a very ad hoc way, to talk about OCCTET. And we have Sébastien. And Sébastien, I've known you for a very long time, but I have no idea how to pronounce your last name. So I'm going to ask you to do that and then give a short introduction about yourself.
Sure,
Welcome.
Sure. Thank you, Toby. That's a really nice presentation. And I'm really happy to be here to this first session of CRA called CRA Mondays. That's definitely a good name. So my name is Sébastien Heurtematte. I'm French. I'm a member of the Eclipse Foundation and coordinator of the OCCTET project, where I lead a consortium of 7 partners disseminated across Europe. From a technical background, so I have a strong technical background in open source because I work mainly in the IT team at the foundation, within the relaying team. So I have a strong background in supply chain, software supply chain, as well as engineer, and also about software architecture. So I'm passionate in collaboration and making things quite simpler and seamless, reliable. I think that's the purpose of OCCTET and how we aim to tackle the CRA. So let's get started with a presentation of the OCCTET project. We have quite a few to cover. So if you have any question, please feel free to interact. Maybe Toby, as you said, you will get those questions and we can answer at the end and have this chat session directly right after. So
OCCTET, absolutely, yes, and I think you're both going to give us some early insights about OCCTET and what the project is and what is it that you do. And also, I think as a second part, some of the a questionnaire that you've run recently, and some initial information about this, which I think would be really useful. And of course, if people want to ask questions, feel free to do so in the chat. And we'll see when it makes sense to interrupt Sébastien and have those questions discussed.
Okay, so OCCTET stands for Open Cybersecurity Compliance Toolkit. So what is OCCTET exactly? Just in a simple sentence, it's we aim to provide some tooling, some resources for SMEs, European SME. So that's definitely something we want to target, and with this project, and through the SMEs, we want to help also open source projects in their cybersecurity posture. This is definitely if I have to resume what is OCCTET, this is the essence of OCCTET. Let me change my slide just a second. So I have a few slides about the CRA, but I guess everyone knows the CRA in this meeting. Just some reminder about some important date about the reporting obligation in September 2026 and all other obligation in December 2027. And what is important is OCCTET, it's a 2 years project that end in November 2026. That's why those dates are really important, because they are quite similar. So it's a 24 months project. It's an European project. So it's funded by the European Commission and more specifically the ECCC. It's a project with a total of 2.5 million euros. So, and as I said, we are 7 partners, and we definitely aim to tackle the CRA compliance for SMEs. So OCCTET, as I said, it's open source compliance, comprehensive tools, resource design to simplify, streamline. That's a long sentence. I'm sorry, but that's the definition in the call. But just let's break down this sentence in key words or key parts. Really important there. First, as I said, it's SME. We really want to target specifically SME, small and medium-sized enterprise. They, as you may know, they often lack of resources, of tooling, special staff to manage complex cybersecurity and regulatory tasks. A second word is open source, as we are the Eclipse Foundation. So we want to help as well the open source community, the Eclipse Foundation projects, and not only Eclipse Foundation project, but the FOSS community in general. The second key part is the comprehensive tool and resources. So we definitely want to create many tools and checklists and best practices, blueprints during the lifetime of the project. So that's part of deliverables that we aim to produce in this context. Open source compliance, yes, it's all about open source. So we will definitely create and contribute to open source, to existing open source project, and with this philosophy of open source behind. Let me present quickly our partners. So we are 7 in this consortium with from different countries in Europe. Let's get started with the SME. It's European Digital SME Alliance based in Brussels. So they represent something like 45,000 ICT SME across Europe. They are involved in CRA awareness, and they are focused on dissemination communication in our project. We have About Code. About Code, it's quite well known in the open source realm because they produce some well-known projects like Scan Code, Vulnerable Code, and they contribute actively to some standards like SBOM or VEX. Red Alert, which is a French company based in Alfortville. They focus on IoT and ICT production certification. So they have a strong expertise in the CRA. And Expertware, it's basically the same. It's an IT service providers from Romania. So they are CRA experts. Double Open is they are from Finland, so they are well known for the Eclipse Foundation because they are involved in the Eclipse Objectives project, and they provide one project which is called ORT server based on ORT. So it's well known as well as an open source tool, OSS review toolkit. Bitsy, they are from Germany. They will automate a whole process. They are IT consulting company. And then to finish, the Eclipse Foundation, we are coordinator, but also involved in developing toolings to comply with the CRA for SMEs. So what are the objectives of OCCTET? OCCTET, as I said, CRA and even cybersecurity comes with a high cost, and those SME lack of resources, etc. So they're struggling to comply with the CRA, and they don't clearly understand what is a CRA. I will come back later on this, because we had a webinar recently about how they understand the CRA. So our goal is really to empower SME by understanding the CRA and providing tooling, and in an automated way, so based on open source tooling. So it will be free of charge for every company, and we will provide some services as well. This fidelity data that I will discuss later. I think it will be one of the most exciting project inside the project of OCCTET. In terms of roadmap, our timeline, it's split in three different parts. So one is about define and support compliance. It's mostly helping SME to understand what is a CRA. The second part is the tooling part, and the third one is how we test our use cases with SME by recruiting SMEs or open source projects. So we have a few KPI on this, and how we prove that our tooling is efficient for those companies. So let's get deep down into some those key parts, those part of the roadmap, starting with define and support compliance. So yeah, when they start, companies, manufacturers, etc., try to comply with the CRA first. They need to understand if they need really to comply with the CRA. So if they are concerned, if their products are concerned by the CRA. So we will, in this particular field, help them to assess whenever they need to comply with the CRA obligation, etc., or not. What are my obligations? So what will be the obligation of the company? It's about the CRA evaluation process. So given the variety of CRA compliance and depending on the SME activities and the product that they put on the market, we will develop a checklist there. So, and basically, in the end, we will provide some deliverables like blueprints, best practices, all a bunch of documents or web application that will help to understand what they need to do for their products before they put things on the market or during the whole lifetime of a product on the market. So in terms of deliverable, it's first we started to gather SME and enforce requirements via surveys, via webinar. It was already done in January. We will define a compliance checklist. It's already started as well. We have a kind of template of checklist depending if you're a first project or if you're a SME. And then the main goal is really to create this web application accessible online for everyone, or that can be hosted by companies internally as well. The second part is the tooling part. So it's one of the most important of the project. It's breakdown in four parts, different parts. The first, it's if I have to explain how it works, it's about the whole to chain. So it will start first with the discovery part. In this part, we will generate SBOM. So we will use tools from our partners, for instance, RT or T server and services, to generate accurate software package inventory. We need this to start. So it will be based on ORT scan code. And we will have some process to correct and to make things accurate based on some AI tooling that we intend to develop. In parallel, we will create this fidelity database, which will act as a reference data for packages. So the idea is to have this shared software metadata platform for packages to host code origin, vulnerabilities, etc. So we will collect, aggregate, combine, correlate metadata from force packages. So it's all based on the Perl on Perl. And we intend to get those data from the various sources such as NVD, GitHub, GitLab, and some upstream sources. And it will be also a collaborative platform where anyone would be able to report vulnerabilities, issues, having peer reviewing some packages and depending on the vulnerability reported. We will provide some remediation action to and workaround patches. There will be a lot of information there about vulnerability. And then once you have the discovery part, so an SBOM, an accurate SBOM and a federated database, we will do some triage. So the idea here it's to define a way to report vulnerabilities on the product based on this correlation between the SBOM, the dependencies, the vulnerabilities from these various incoming information, and we will map this inventory as well to secondary software supply chain risk like sustainability, maturity, and quality of software components. And in the end, we will create reports which will make the product compliance with the CRA. It's about outbound SBOM, VEX files, Cyclone-X, and attestations files. We still need to define exactly what is really needed by the CRA, but that's definitely a goal. And we will communicate with upstream first project and downstream user and regulatories. That's definitely our goal with the tooling part. Some interesting KPI in our project. So we have a bunch of KPI, but so most important is that we have to cover 100% of the essential requirements, so which is quite normal for this project, with 4 remaining requirements that will be partially covered because they comply with the life cycle of the product. So that's just not very important. The number of tools developed by the CRA compliance. So we estimate something like between 10 or 15 tools that we will create or invest time on open source project. So that's quite a lot. We have KPI about communication. So thanks to our partner DSME, we will host many webinar events, participate in many events, and create a workshop once our tooling will be available. And we already hosted 2 webinars, and many of our partners already participate in many events. Last week, for instance, they participated in Open Chain and Friends in Germany. So I think they will participate in many different events across Europe in the next 2 years. So we will get the chance to meet them. We target more than 200 SMEs. That's quite a high target to reach. And we have to reach and to meet this goal of more than 60 use cases, 20 coming from the open source software project, and 40 from SME. That's quite a lot. So we already send different deliverables to the European Commission. One is really interesting. We host this webinar 3 weeks ago. It was the webinar named Need Analysis Workshop. The report is accessible on our website. I will give links to our website at the end of this presentation, but what is really representative of the concern of companies, as you can see, it's legacy products. Definitely, never forget about the legacy. I think paperwork. Who likes paperwork? And iceberg, and Nabarcos. I think that's quite those most interesting keywords in this word cloud. And there is also this spider chart where we can see that most of participants had really limited knowledge. So we need to disseminate and to continue disseminate CRA, how it works, and maybe to simplify how they can comply with CRA. So that's one of the purpose of OCCTET, by providing self-assessment and some blueprints and make life easier for SMEs. And let's something that's definitely something new. Last week there's many project, EU project, and last week we had a meeting for an initiative, a cross-project initiative in Europe with other well-known projects like Cybersecurity, and we intend to have this cross-promotion effort with webinar events, etc., to even more spread the word about the CRA in different occasions. So this is a really big initiative. Just started, but most of projects have a lifetime of 2 years. So that's we will find here a lot of opportunities to even more meet our KPI and reach our target, which is quite high. So if you want to know more about the OCCTET project, you can visit our website, which is octet.eu. We have a different communication channel with LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Soon we will set up a newsletter. And if you want to participate, please send us an email to octet-eu@eclipse.org. We are looking for any real use case, SME, and that's a good opportunity here with the CRA Mondays to recruit more people to be involved in this initiative. We set 2 surveys where we try to understand even more the FOSS community and SMEs, so you will be able to access once the presentation will be made publicly, and answer to this survey, depending if you're an SME or a FOSS project. I think that's it. Thank you. I hope I wasn't too long.
No, that was great. Thank you very much. I mean, the very selfish idea behind these, these CRA Monday talks is for me to understand quickly a number of things that are going on, and hopefully like have others sort of like listen and learn the same way I'm doing in the process, right? And so for me, it was really great just to better understand what this project was, who it was targeting, and what kind of like overall plans it had. before we get into before we dig a little bit more into the survey angle and the report that you might be able to share some insights of the surveys that you've already done. Well, first of all, I really want to open the floor to questions. If people have questions, that would be lovely. And then, I have a few of my own, but I see Fukami, please.
Yeah, very interesting presentation. Thanks. I have a bunch of questions. The first question is, how is what you do for vulnerability handling integrated or connected to OIVD and the single reporting platform? The second question is, you seem to go straight for you are in or out of compliance, but from my understanding, what the actual power of the CRA and the before mentioned, especially single reporting platform is that there are voluntary compliance measures. That means what I would call enthusiastic compliance. And my question is here, I don't see that as a strategy. It's just it seems to go the way to say one or the other. And yeah, my question is what you think about, framing it also more into either you do stuff voluntary or you do that as as an actual obligation. And the last question is, you have a very tough timeline. And my question here is, how do you kind of follow up with what's happening in the European standardization process? Thanks.
So those are great questions. Can I, especially I want to have a conversation about the voluntary compliance aspect, because this is a topic that's been brought up on a number of occasions, and particularly by you, Fukami, and I think it's a really important one. And maybe Sébastien, I'd like to have your thoughts about this, but I kind of would like to frame it myself beforehand, which is that the open source community got very involved with the CRA very early on, because it was one of the first occasions that open source was mentioned in regulation of that importance, and felt really concerned and felt really sort of late in the process of understanding what it had to do for the CRA, and concerned that some of the regulation and requirements would make it very difficult for open source. And what I've noticed over since I've started being very involved in the CRA, so now close to a year ago, is that open source is actually championing a lot of the practices that the CRA would like to see broader adoption of, and that we're, in lots of cases, very much as a community, very much ahead of the game, and to use the term that Fukami mentioned, sort of voluntary or enthusiastic compliance is something that we already do. And that, I tend to agree with his position that we don't frame it in a positive enough way. And so I'm kind of curious, Sébastien, when you hear that, how does this resonate with you from an open source background perspective, but also considering SMEs, how are you seeing SMEs react to the CRA? And what kind of what's the idea? Are they trying to just make sure that they're not in scope, or are there actually do you see sort of interest to improve just the security posture and the security of products overall?
That's definitely a big question, absolutely necessary question to ask, and that's a concern, to see and to feel how SME could be more involved, if they are really interested in CRA, they have to comply with the CRA. So SME, that's okay. I think that at some point they will do the work. And definitely the open source side is maybe the most concerned part. That's why we need to communicate, and the communication is a key point here to spread the word and to help them to better enhance their security posture. Otherwise, everybody fail in the end. So for sure, you have projects with a foundation behind, but not all projects have foundations or any framework that's well defined how they work. That's maybe some focus that we could have during the lifetime of the project. We will try to engage with other stewards as well. I think that's a good way to embrace everyone and to tackle the CRA. But definitely, if we don't start now and don't communicate, in the end, everybody will fail, and it will be a disaster. So.
And then Fukami had two other questions. One was, how does your tooling plan to interface with the single reporting platform? And are you keeping a tab on this? I don't know if you're familiar with what the single reporting platform is, or the fact that there's been an EU call to it. So my understanding, and Fukami, if I'm saying if I'm making mistakes, please feel free to jump in. My understanding is the idea is that ENISA will have a single reporting platform that will be able to intake any kind of reporting and notifications that needs to be done to them. And that there was just an open call for tender for this platform fairly recently from the EU. And so I guess one of the interesting things that you could do here is to figure out how your reporting tools can interface with this platform as it is built, right? And maybe even provide some additional automations that you might not have initially thought could be possible, right? And so that might be really interesting. And then the last bit was the standards process. And also here, curious of how you're thinking about keeping up to date with the harmonized standards as they're essentially part of the one way to help SMEs comply, right? And so I guess that was the additional question.
First of all, I wasn't aware about the single reporting platform, so that's great we have this talk. Definitely, we have, as I mentioned, we have this task to report to upstream project, but downstream as well to some regulatory. So in the end, it might be this platform or another one. We will have to do the work. So that's perfectly fine that something is going in that direction. What was the other question? Excuse me, Toby.
So maybe Fukami, you want to add something about the platform here? Are you muted?
Sorry. So what the single reporting platform actually is. The single reporting means single reporting because you report non-exploited vulnerabilities and severe incidents to that platform, and it also offers the voluntary reporting. This is why it's a single reporting. What is also connected to it is what's called OIVD, the European Vulnerability Database. They have an own ID that is not the same like CVE, and it might not have any connection to a CVE, so you have to consider it on itself. And that already went like a kind of pre-version went live last week. And you also have a bunch of actions from CSERT, for example, Circle with vulnerability lookup. So my question is how do you kind of integrate the efforts that are closer? Because you named a lot of the US stuff, like NVD and so on. but there is a lot that's going on the European side. And the single reporting and OLBD, they are also in the CRA, they are actually mentioned. So yeah, my question is how you integrate. And actually have one little extension so that is very much focused on the CRA and being an SME myself. I'm fully aware that very many of the people falling under the CRA also fall under other regulation. And I don't see any like kind of things in the roadmap that that really deals with the interplay with other regulation, being it the AI Act or being it another product regulation or like DORA or NIS or whatever. So is there like also an effort to actually look at this at one point, or is that just pure focus on the specifics of the CRA?
Okay, let's start. Let's get started just with your first question. How do we integrate those other sources from the EU? Yes, I mentioned many US things because they already existed, and when the call was created, so it was based on something really existing. And if something coming up from the Europe, that's even more better, I think, for the OCCTET project and for the overall goal of the project and of this. As I mentioned, we created this CRA cluster. It's even better for all projects involved in the CRA in the end. So we will have to figure out. We are not there yet, so we have a plan to develop those tooling. We have 2 years, so we will mention this at some point. If it's required, we will include this, and depending on the priority and the cost as well of this implementation, we will implement those during the lifetime of the project. Otherwise, I guess the project will survive in the end after 2 years. So if it's not the case, we will create some tickets. Everything will be open source. So that's another possibility. And I forgot also the second question. Please remind me.
Other regulation.
Yes,
So
it's sort of like
regulations.
essentially like how are you thinking about how you're thinking about helping other SMEs deal with other regulations?
I think it's quite similar to this question about integrate other sources. So if something new coming up to the project, we try to face, and if it's if we have some kind of CRA AI regulations or I don't know other that impact the CRA, we try to figure out how to solve the issue. Nothing is really set in stone yet. I think we have a plan. We are working on making this real, and we will try to provide some tools by the end of the year, and to test with the SME and first project. But definitely, that's something we need to build, and not only inside the consortium, but with SMEs and open source project. It's not only us, but it's the whole community that need to be involved even more in the OCCTET project.
Very cool. We only have 15 minutes left, and I know that the surveys that you mentioned at the bottom of the slide here, you've actually run them and got some data. I also know you didn't get as much data as you would like, but you still have some quite useful information. And so is there anything that you can share here and sort of maybe give a bit of context on the surveys? And also, yeah, I mean, for a start, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. This survey was a need analysis workshop, so we invited SMEs to participate. We have this kind of Miro board, so it was an interactive workshop where everyone was putting post-it on the board, and depending on different themes. And the result is here. Maybe I can show you on the OCCTET website where everyone would be able to access it after this talk. This is the OCCTET website, and we have a different category and part of the website. You can access our workshop by going down the resources workshop, need analysis workshop, and you will get just a simple resume, and you can download the report right here. And yeah, we have definitely some interesting thing. Let me. So what kind of products with digital element do you develop? So it was mainly open source project, for instance, in these sessions. How long has your SME been in business? More than 10 years, so not a recent company. What size are your SMEs? And I present this word cloud earlier. Definitely, I think legacy products is shining here. Maybe you have any question about this survey? You want to something really interesting? I didn't put on the presentation is the large scope of different companies that participate on this particular event. So as you can see, there was some participants focus on AI, not only education, textile, healthcare, research, etc. So
yeah, I think that's actually that data point is very interesting. It sort of mirrors some of my experience last week being in Denmark for the Sensenelec event and in Sweden. Is the amount of companies who are, especially SMEs in the EU, who are impacted by this, who are not folks or organizations that we usually interact with, right? Who we don't necessarily see as like software companies, but who now are, right? Seeing textile and materials here, it's like, yes, that's exactly what I'm seeing quite a lot of, is the CRA impacts essentially all verticals, or a lot of them. And software, as in, we know this for a fact, right? But software is like in lots of different verticals and lots of different products. And there may be actors that we don't see that often. And so it's really interesting that, it shows in sort of like who showed up here.
Agree. And that's why we have this, our partner, the SME. The impact is really, having the SME inside the consortium is a game changer, because they always have this direct contact with the SME. And even for the Eclipse Foundation, we can target directly the open source community. We can send emails to our Eclipse Foundation community, etc. So the impact is very is quite huge.
So in this survey that you did, sort of what are the things that that really surprised you, or that you thought was really interesting as a data point?
Nothing really surprised me. I think after a few events in the CRA, you can touch, but this definitely show you that it's real. That's the big difference. Participating in workshop events and talking to everyone, okay, that's fine. But here you have the real feedback of participants, of people who are really concerned about the CRA. And you see now that it's real, and it touches everyone. So,
and so among the concerns that were raised, for example, interesting. Okay, you mentioned like how familiar you are with the CRA, how is cybersecurity managing your organization. It's a bit too small for me to read, but like any insights there? Anything special there?
Not really. I think what is really important here is the limited knowledge of the CRA. It was for all participants, at least.
Right, and also I can see here like no dedicated cybersecurity personnel inside of the SMEs, right? for half of them.
Sure. For SMEs, definitely. The biggest medium SMEs is less than 2015 people. So I dedicate a team for cybersecurity. It's too much for them. Even for smaller, I don't even talk about small, but medium. No, it's too much cost effective. And a few words, maybe section 3. No. That's it about the survey. But we have really these two surveys. Maybe we can access from the OCCTET website to participate about SME and open source project. Really invite anyone to participate and to give answers to those questions. It will help us to shape what is OCCTET, because we need to create those use cases. Every product is basically different depending on the company, depending on the products that they put on the market. Every product has a specific, will have its dedicated CRA compliance requirements. So that's the challenge here, to make tools that comply to the CRA, but to every use cases for everyone. So I think that's the biggest challenge we have to face during the OCCTET project.
Okay, so the two surveys are still open, and you're still welcome very much input on both of them. And they're helping you shape the work that you're going to be doing for the foreseeable future to help SMEs comply. I'm kind of curious on my end, sort of, if you see like very different questions or concerns raised by companies that are, I mean, essentially by stewards, like sort of like single FOSS vendors and manufacturers who are not like FOSS vendors. I'm wondering if they're like, distinct concerns for all of those, or if they all share the same concerns. If this is a meaningful way to categorize these different groups.
I think it's too early for the project to give such an answer. We don't have enough feedback, and that's why we really need those survey to be answers and response by anyone.
All right. That makes a ton of sense. I see Jakob raising their hand.
Yeah, I wanted to check if you plan to like develop the tools in open as well. You said that it will be open source, but if you plan to start like developing from the beginning as on a GitHub, for example, so we can like people can get involved and see the progress.
Exactly. So we will base our efforts on existing projects, as I mentioned, on ORT server and scan code, vulnerable code, and federate code. So you can follow those projects. I think they definitely will be part of the tool chain. And for new project, we need to determine. It's not yet determined, but once we will see what's missing in our tool chain, we will create for sure a GitHub organization with project inside, and you will be able to access those. But the first entry point for the moment is the website. But at some point, for sure, we will have some GitHub organization accessible with a project, etc. And you will be able to participate in an open source way.
Okay, sounds good.
So you want to participate, right? I can take your name.
Yeah, we could. We will definitely be interested in using those tools as a PHP project. So we can I can email you and maybe send some questions.
With pleasure. Any other questions? We lost Toby, no?
Yep, I think we lost Toby.
So if you want to meet us, we have a bunch of upcoming events. So Open Chain and Friends was last week, so CRA Mondays is today. But some partners will be at Cybersecurity Europe in May, Info Security Europe, Cybersecurity. We will update this timeline whenever we have a new event where we participate. So just take a look, and we will create this newsletter really soon to make anyone aware about events and particular webinar, workshop, etc. that we will provide during the lifetime of the project.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I did have a really big glitch on my end, and I was really wondering what happened. So I was alone in the meeting for a few minutes. Just like, I'm not exactly sure that was the plan. But I see that you've entirely managed to wrap this up without me. But before letting you go, well, first of all, I do want to thank you for showing up and sort of explaining what OCCTET does. And satisfying my curiosity and my understanding of this space. So that's great. Also, thank you for everyone who stayed and who joined this first Cyber Mondays call. Thank you for everyone who raised really good points, asked great questions, and sort of really helped us all deal with this new legislation and related legislation and improve the security posture of open source projects as a result. So thank you very much. We're planning to hold those CRA Mondays after every SIG call. So that's on every every other week on Monday at 5 p.m. Central European time. Yeah, I mean, was this, thank you very much for joining us, Sébastien, today. We'll share all of your links and the recording and all of these things on the ORC website and in the mailing list. And we'll see you all hopefully in 2 weeks for the next episode of CRA Mondays. Thank you very much for attending. And Sébastien, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Toby. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one, folks. Talk to you in a couple of weeks.